Of a tough mind and a tender heart. And I think Jimmy Carter was born that way.
My father was a dedicated, hard-working, down-to-earth farmer, and he was a strict racial segregationist. My mother, on the other hand, believed just the opposite. She was a registered nurse, and she treated black and white people exactly the same. This was a kind of torment or division in my life. All my neighbors, all my playmates, all my intimate companions were African-American kids. We went to separate schools, went to separate churches, so that's the way I grew up. Miss Judy Coleman was our superintendent, and she convinced me that I could do anything I wanted to. At that time, my only ambition was to go to the Naval Academy because I had a favorite uncle who was in the Navy.
At age 17, Jimmy received his appointment to the academy, becoming the first Carter to leave Georgia to pursue higher education. In 1945, on a trip home from the academy, Jimmy ran into a friend of one of his sisters from Plains named Rosalind Smith. By the end of their first date, Carter was smitten. 1 year later, they were married.
The highest ambition that a young naval officer could have was to go into the submarine force. And when I went to work for Rickover, he was extremely demanding on me. I soon learned that he would be the greatest influence on my life of any man except my own daddy, my own father.
With a coveted position in the Navy, Lieutenant Carter's life course seemed set. But in 1953, Earl Carter was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
All the time I was there were streams of visitors who came to our house in Plains, and they would regale me with these accounts of the things that my daddy had done to improve their lives. They were totally secret.
He came back and said, I could do more in Plains, Georgia than I could to help people than I could ever do in the Navy.
And to my utter amazement, I began to think that I should follow my father's footsteps rather than to continue with my Navy career. When I came home, I had no interest in politics. But the #1 gubernatorial candidate, his slogan was he would hold up one finger and say, "No, not one," promising that he would shut down all the public schools in Georgia if one black child entered a white classroom. And I decided that I would try to do what I could to prevent that happening.
Carter carried his cause to the political stage and ran for state senate. When a local corrupt politician rigged the results, Carter refused to concede.
This experience taught me a lot of things about politics and government. First of all, I saw the horrible lack of honesty and integrity in the basic election laws of my own state. I also saw that to challenge this status quo was possible if one was tenacious in trying to bring about a seminal change.
Carter's pursuit for justice prevailed, and he took his seat in the Georgia State Senate. After 2 terms in the state senate, Jimmy set his sights on the governorship. He lost his first bid in 1966, but came back fighting in 1970 and won.
Jimmy Carter, 9,000 votes. Al Sue, 4,000 votes.
On his first day in office, Governor Carter called upon all Georgians to choose a new direction.
I say to you quite frankly that the time for racial discrimination is over.
We had had the horrible, divisive Vietnam War. We had had all the scandals of Watergate. I think who Jimmy Carter was and is sort of fit that thing that people were looking for.
We always thought he could win. I mean, we never doubted it. And we all campaigned, our whole family went in different directions.
My name is Jimmy Carter and I'm running for president.
Jimmy Carter and incumbent Gerald Ford were in a close race up to the final days of the election.
NBC News projects James Earl Carter of the state of Georgia elected the next president of the United States.
On day one, the new president faced the ambitious promise he made on a campaign trail, setting America on a new course.
Looming energy shortages confront the United States with a crisis as serious as war.
We simply must balance our demand for energy with our rapidly shrinking resources. By acting now, we can control our future instead of letting the future control us.
9 members of OPEC have raised the price of their crude oil.
No president has ever done more or worked harder to prepare this nation to face an energy crisis than he did. He left this country with a serious, substantive national energy policy.
By the time we finished 4 years in office, America was using 2 million barrels of oil a day less than on the day we took office.
President Carter set out to redefine America's role in the world. He established diplomatic relations with China, signed new Panama Canal treaties, and negotiated a new arms limitation treaty with the Soviet Union.
To this mountaintop tomorrow will come Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat to try to reach across the years of misunderstanding and hatred that have divided their peoples and find some common ground of understanding.
One of the most significant accomplishments of the Carter administration and President Carter personally was the Treaty of Peace between Israel and Egypt.
Carter came into the presidency convinced that we needed peace between Israel and her neighbors, and he wanted to lead in that effort. And he did it.
Peace has come to Israel and to Egypt.
Let there be no more war. Peace unto you. Shalom.
Since 1978, no Israeli has killed any Egyptian, and no Egyptian has killed any Israeli. And that's a significant record.
The U.S. Embassy in Tehran has been invaded and occupied by Iranian students.
People was like, why didn't your husband do something? And so I would come home and say, why don't you do something? He would say, okay, what you want me to do? Bomb the harbor and then have them take out one hostage every day and put him in front of a firing squad?
He just resisted the pressure and did what he thought was right. We finally got every hostage home safely, and we did it without starting a war or using tactics that endangered the hostages.
He was the president that reversed the steady decline in American defense budgets with steady, real growth in real dollars every single year that he was in office.
30,000 Russian combat troops have crossed into Afghanistan.
In late 1979, in response to the invasion, President Carter increased defense spending faster still and persuaded European allies to do the same. To the Soviet Union, he issued a warning.
An attempt by any outside force to gain control of the Persian Gulf region will be regarded as an assault on the vital interests of the United States of America.
I thought that America should set the example for the whole world in protecting the very essence of human rights in every way.
President Carter also called on Roosevelt, his closest ally, to help spread his messages of human rights.
He came in one day and said, I'd like for you to go to Latin America for me. Would you be willing to do that? And I jumped at the chance. When we travel in the world now, Jimmy is treated with great respect, and I think it goes back to his human rights policy when he was in the White House. People know that he cared about them.
President Carter's legacy is peace with the world. And he left the presidency not only with peace, but with the respect and admiration of the majority of the citizens on this planet.
Well, when I was involved 4 years earlier than I had anticipated, I wanted something else to occupy my time and to make my life interesting.
Million refugees.
So I sat up in bed and said, I got an idea. We can have a little place in Atlanta similar to Camp David, where people that have a conflict or a war ongoing or potential can come to us and we'll help negotiate a peace agreement. So that was the original thought.
And so the Carter Center was born. Its mission, waging peace, fighting disease, building hope. Much of the Carter Center's early work was aimed at ensuring free and fair elections around the world.
It is really exciting and wonderful to go and monitor an election. I remember when we went to Liberia, for instance, I decided to go down the line and ask them, well, they had stood in this misting rain all night. But when you'd say, and why are you going to vote? There's peace. And it does something to your soul to be sure to be able to participate in something like that.
Conflict resolution goes hand in hand with nurturing the growth of democracy. The Carter Center and President Carter himself have played a central role in resolving bitter divisions between and within nations. It's a fundamental tenet of the Carter Center. Peace and freedom thrive most in communities free from chronic illness. Since 1982, the Carter Center has been fighting a war against infectious diseases around the world.
This is a magic net. About 3/4 of our total budget and 3/4 of our personnel are devoted to addressing so-called neglected tropical diseases.
We know that mental illness is a disease as any other. It can be diagnosed, it can be treated, and almost everyone suffering from mental illness can be helped.
Mrs. Carter's commitment to mental health issues, begun in the governor's mansion and continued in the White House, have also found a home in the Carter Center.
So she's become the world champion for mental health. If the Carter Center had not done anything except provide a foundation for Rosalind's mental health program, it would have been worthwhile.
Jimmy and Rosalind Carter have done more good things for more people in more places than any other couple on the face of the earth.
Jimmy Carter is this year's winner of the Nobel Peace Prize.
My name's Jimmy Sadia.
In the presidency, he got a sense of the fact that the world can be changed, and it doesn't take a government to change it. It can be changed one person at a time, one disease at a time, building one house at a time. He's led by something within, and he follows it wherever it leads. And it's not a matter of it being easy or successful. It just needs to be done. And if nobody else will do it, he'll try.
God gives us a capacity for choice. We can choose to alleviate suffering. We can choose to work together for peace. We can make these changes, and we must.